Hello everybody and welcome back to another VOD review. Today we have something even more special. We finally have another GM player to show off their skills today. If you want to introduce yourself, go right ahead.
Hi, my name is Benari. I'm a GM Flex support player, just looking to improve.
Awesome. And you said before we started recording this that you think you struggle with tempo specifically?
Yeah.
Especially within this new meta, which is changing a lot, and I'm here for it. I'm a fan. Of the meta changing quite a bit. And we're going to talk about that as well. But that's good that you actually mentioned that, because I feel like a lot of players just kind of be like, yeah, I think my team's holding me back in GM, and I just kind of like, I'm just kind of voting because I have no clue. And, you know, at least you have, maybe you have some semblance of an idea of what you might be doing wrong here. So the meta right now is shifting in a really weird way because of the Brig changes. So let's just get right into this. Brig is really strong right now, and a lot of people have been trying to run Zen Brig. I know you said you scrim for a collegiate team. At least yes. I'm assuming you do. Here's the thing. I don't want to say that Brig and Zen are meta. I just know that they're strong, and that currently with Penn State, we are experimenting with Brig Zen. And I don't think that's really a secret. I think a lot of top teams are experimenting with that comp. So Kiriko, I still think she's really strong, and you can make her work because of how overtuned she is. So it's interesting that you say, hey, I think the tempo is the problem, because I think the way you play Kiriko with a ball is much different than you are going to be playing Kiriko with a Ramatra or an Orisa. Like, quite literally opposite ends of the spectrum here. Very different play styles, especially when you have a Zenyatta. Very different. This is how I envisioned Kiriko was supposed to be played, but I was wrong, because Kiriko was played in the direction of she is a brawl support. She plays a lot like Moira. She does not play the way I thought she did, and I think this is really... I can't type. I think this is really interesting how she's kind of went. So let's talk about actually what I mean by this. Kiriko doesn't necessarily have to just walk around with her ball anymore. She can be a lot more aggressive with this composition and look for more of that pokey value. I don't know if you've ever seen neutral play Kiriko. The dude flanks like hella hard on this character, because that's just a play style that works against teams that are not very good. He can just kind of flank. He 2-taps someone in rotation, teleports back to his team, and now you're taking the fight as a 5v4. That kind of play style is meant for a composition like ball, where the whole idea, especially against a ball into a brawl composition, is that, let's say that this little basketball is a Reinhardt, and this is like a 2D plane that I'm talking about, and the whole idea is that you want to surround them from a bunch of different angles and just, you know, take them down very fast, and not necessarily very fast, but kind of drain them of their resources and kill them over time just by surrounding them and putting them in uncomfortable positions. If you're looking for a great ball tutorial, look up the Shanghai Dragons versus Atlanta Reign finals from about a year ago. Fantastic way to learn this composition. I actually made a video about that. I'll send that over to you, and I'll put it up that way for everyone to watch if I remember. Because of that, we can kind of see if that's the way that ball wants to play. Kiriko, she doesn't play the same way at all. Like, you can see that, right? Because before, there's only one dimension. It's both teams run at each other, and Kiriko is pretty much playing front to back. There's not really a whole lot of opportunity for her to deviate from the team and maybe look for a pick. Because if she tries to deviate from the team, that means that the front line is getting no support. There's no Suzu. There's no healing. They just crumble and die.
Yeah.
So now Kiriko has this weird opportunity to actually utilize that damage effectively, and it changes everything. Personally, I think Brig might do it a little better because she can kind of just cart the Zen around, but again, that's still up to debate, and I might be wrong because I haven't really played a whole lot of this game because it's college, you know. I don't get to just know the meta because I'm not playing 8 hours a day like I used to. But I still think it's leaning itself to more Brig, but we can still kind of look at this. So if we look at their composition, it's very much divey. They have a Doomfist, they have a Genji and a Tracer. Their identity as a composition is, okay, let's find a support or other character that is weak, and let's just demolish the heck out of them. So the big thing is like, okay, you don't have on the... And again, I'm talking about this a lot because I think this is so important from a GM perspective to really just look at the macro size of things. So if it's boring, I understand, but this is really important for everyone to understand. Kiriko, you're going to be, before when you were running that Ramatra comp, like you had a Lucio, you had Sojourn. I mean, arguably you still should have Sojourn. But in this situation, you have a Soldier, you have a Ball, you don't have a Lucio anymore. And that's very important to understand because Lucio is kind of self-sufficient. He can't really get dove on. Now, if you want to run a Zen to try to take advantage of the Ball and Brig changes, if you want to take advantage of those, you kind of need the Zen so that you can follow up on these dives and make it more efficient against those brawl compositions, which is the whole idea. But now when you're mirrored, you have to understand, as Kiriko, your support is also something you actually have to look out for now, because before you didn't have to. Before, it was just like, okay, he'll be fine. It's Lucio. He shouldn't get dove. No one is getting dove on this team. Therefore, we're just going to be playing front-to-back brawl. It's another idea of, okay, this is different. The meta has shifted. I now have a new thing that I have to worry about, which is my Zen. Primarily, it's going to be your Zen. Which is why I think Brig might do the job better, just because that's kind of how she's been played, and the changes kind of make it easier for her. But that's not to say that Kiriko can't just absolutely decimate a ranked lobby, because she's still so much more overtuned. Like, she's still so strong.
Yeah.
Does that all make sense?
Yeah.
And hopefully that makes sense to everyone that's watching on YouTube. If it doesn't, ask questions. You know, that's the best way to learn if you're not understanding. And also, I read all of the comments now, and it's a lot easier to manage now that Overwatch isn't as popular of a game. I can actually answer all the comments and not just be bombarded by a lot of stuff. It's a lot easier for me now, so don't be afraid to ask questions. Are you ready to actually start this VOD review and see where we maybe went wrong, though? So, okay, just to review, idea of ball comp, surround enemy comp. In dive, it still is kind of the same thing, except instead of entire comp, we're looking for, what do you think we're looking to dive on? On blue team.
We're looking to dive on. So you're saying my team, what are we looking to do?
What are you looking to kill? Who's a vulnerable target on blue team?
Ana.
Yes, exactly. You know this stuff. Just don't make it super complicated on yourself. You got this. Mm-hmm. So a path you could maybe take off of the rip is maybe you want to try to take this mega side. You want to try to find the Ana position, helping that dive. And then the moment that you realize that they're starting to converge on your end, you can TP back and try to support him. That's kind of how I envision this going, but I want to see how you play this out.
Gotcha.
So yep, I'm okay with the TP out for tempo. Just trying to get out there as fast as possible and find damage early. Okay. So your ball got slept off and your tracer died. Is this partially their fault? Yeah, they died very quickly. But let's look at this again. Did we ever establish a presence that was surrounding the enemy? And this is where you're going to find that NA players really suck at this comp. They have never been good at this, because they don't understand how different comps position. So reminder that the whole idea of playing a ball, or really any dive in general, is you're trying to surround the enemy and have them all be in the center of a circle. But let's look at how we actually played this with the spectators overlay. And let's put this in slow-mo, because you were also a culprit of this.
Yeah, for sure.
We essentially played the ball comp front to back. So imagine how different this fight looks if instead of the soldier going this way, the soldier is maybe taking this angle up top here and looking at them from behind. And also, what if you as Kiriko postured yourself to maybe take an angle this way and shoot them from this angle? So can we kind of see how we made this fundamental misunderstanding of the composition? And it's actually going to hurt you, because before, if you're playing this as Kiriko, you're just playing front to back, right? Okay, like this is where the fight's happening. This is how the fight is happening. But now it's so much more flavorful. I mean, that's a weird word to use, but it's just how I feel about ball comps and dive in general. There's so much more going on here. And the thing is because there's no pressure from this side, it allows the enemy team to full focus on this threat that's right in front of them. And it makes it so easy for your teammates to crumble. So let's get a little bit of a better angle on this. Like here. It's so much easier for them to just absolutely decimate your team and force them out very easily with less cooldowns because there's no new angle being taken. Now your Zen is like, okay, this Zen actually might not be terrible because he immediately is like, no, like I need to take an angle and maybe get some damage behind. Like he might actually be an OG player in terms of understanding how this comp works because he's now he's trying to go that way, but at this point, look how fast they crumbled. They died almost immediately once their cooldowns were taken, were extinguished, or what am I looking for? Depleted, because there was no pressure from this side, and there was nothing that they ever had to be worrying about. And from here on, this fight's just going to be complete roll for the enemy. They're going to completely just destroy you guys. It doesn't matter if you Suzu correctly. It doesn't matter at all. You guys just get run over. That is going to continue happening if you play this comp front to back.
Makes a lot more sense, yeah.
And
because for sure I haven't played a meta like this in Overwatch 2 yet, so
no,
I didn't understand it yet.
You kind of played it with no, you never really did because Zarya was meta back then, and Monkey was played as a brawl character, not a dive character. That's another thing that's important to understand. That Monkey comp we were playing with Kiriko or Ana, that was not a dive comp. Monkey does not mean dive. He was played as a brawl character back then.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just to make sure that we're all on the same page. And like, here's the thing. It's weird, right, as a support to be placed in a position like this because it's like, wait, I'm on an off angle. Like, this is weird. I'm unsafe. But in reality, it is the only way you will ever be safe because if you don't take that aggressive position, your front line will die. And then it's a 3-on-5. You're just going to die anyways. So realize that this composition is complicated, but it is so fun. Okay, I'm a little bit biased, but I love this composition. NA hates it. And to be quite honest with you, I don't think NA is ever going to be good at this comp. I just don't think it makes sense in NA players' brains. Asia is so good at these comps, but NA just completely sucks. And it's the opposite. Like, Asia is not good at Brawl, but NA just understands Brawl. Because they just know, oh, I'm supposed to stick together with my team. It's weird. It's weird, but it's the truth. So, I mean, right here, it's just naturally kind of working out for you guys because everyone's kind of doing their own thing. So it kind of naturally works out for you, except this was very poorly executed because there was no circle. It was just kind of everyone's taking their own angles. Realistically, the whole idea is that Tracer and Ball are a unit, your Soldier or Sojourn's going to be their own unit, and then you and Zen are going to do your own thing. It's 3 different units now. It's essentially what this is looking like. And your job is to really just take an aggressive angle with this Zen. Or by yourself if you're playing Kiriko and just make something happen before they make something happen realistically. And, you know, I love this. I love this. I'm going to shut up now before I make this any more annoying than it needs to be for Brawl fans. Yep, supporting the Zen. That's going to be a commonplace for this meta. Just making sure you're keeping an eye on him. And that's like a very basic way of putting it. So, like, realistically, your Zen should keep Orb on the ball mostly this meta, and it's your job to keep the DPS alive. Although in ladder, that's probably never going to be the case, so you just have to make sure you're... Yep, that was a good Suzu. You just have to make sure you're adapting to what your teammates are doing. Because sometimes people think Zen shouldn't be putting Orb on ball. He can shift it around the Tracer, but it's dependent on the situation. Am I against that Kiriko ult? I don't think it's terrible. I think it could have been positioned better. I think it could have been positioned almost horizontally here. Just because that's where the fight was going. And it didn't really help your Zen and Soldier, but they never really... I don't know. I think Kiriko ult's really difficult to pull off in this meta, and you almost have to use it like really selfishly or use it defensively. But I don't want to say that 100% until I get more information here. I think that Kiriko's lane ult is just not good for these kind of comps. Okay, yeah, this is just like, okay, you're mechanically solid at Kiriko because you probably had a player for the past however many days.
Yeah.
Yep. It's like mechanically at Kiriko, you're not terrible. There's some like slight things you could be getting better at, but it does actually seem like, hey, I'm not understanding this composition. I need help.
Yeah.
Which you're smart for that. You're valid for that, low key. You're valid. Anyways. Yep. Again, I like how you're doing damage and supporting only when you really need to. You're supporting a little bit. You're healing a little bit too much still, but this situation is not a bad instance of that. Yeah. Yeah. Why is your team just not picking point? Yeah. GM's weird, man. What the hell? Yep. Now we're walking forward. Just. Yep. I don't know what could have been happening there. I feel like it was a team problem where we all could have just stacked on point and then had a better setup. So I can't really blame you, I don't think, for this. I do think when your ball and Tracer are playing that far forward, you need to take a much more aggressive approach than what you're taking right now.
Yeah, for sure. Noticed that.
But I think now that you kind of have a little bit of a better understanding of how this composition works, you'll realize what a safe position actually is, if that makes sense. I think that makes sense to you. You seem like a pretty smart player. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Right, awesome. If you have any questions, just let me know. Don't be afraid to just say something.
Okay.
So right here again, it's that whole idea of you want to make sure that you're not all taking the same angle, or that you're taking too much time to support someone that doesn't necessarily need that support. Yeah. Especially if you're playing Kiriko, because I'm kind of seeing why Kiri isn't played in this comp now. The more I'm watching this, Brig just lends herself to these kind of comps better. Nice shots. Just because she does a better job of just kind of, okay, I packed the DPS and now I don't have to worry about it. Now I'm like helping my Zen take a more aggressive angle. That's kind of what Brig's doing. I feel like if you're going to warrant picking Kiriko, you need to really be taking those aggressive angles and making it work. Yeah. So like, the thing is, this whole time, it's like the Zen would have probably not died so easily had he had a Brig. I think the better play here is like maybe taking this high ground and trying to like poke from a weird angle and forcing them to look at you a little bit. Because realistically on Kiriko, you're not going to die. If you can force them to look at you just even for a little bit and not look at everything else, like that, you're still going to get value. Is everything I'm saying making sense? Because I feel like I might be just making like high level anecdotes that might not make sense.
No, it makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
Yeah, I understand how Kiriko gets a lot of value.
Yeah.
Not just from her utility, but just by being a distraction.
Yeah.
Being pressure.
Especially in this meta compared to last meta. Last meta, you didn't really have that opportunity. At least you shouldn't have had that opportunity. That Susie wasn't needed, but you've been pretty consistent. So, I mean, also in the same vein, I feel like you're almost focused too much on the ball. Like the ball can get health packs, the ball can get orb. I feel like what you need to focus a little bit more on is like, okay, how am I going to get to an angle that's going to be beneficial to where we are likely to take this fight? Yeah. How am I going to pressure them in better ways? And it seems to me more like a mental processing more than it is a mechanical thing. Like I feel like the mechanics of Kira you kind of have down. To be honest, they're not too complicated compared to some of these other characters. At least that might just be because she's overtuned a bit, but I've said that like 5 times already. I think we understand. Yep, taking the duel. This is fine. Forcing out cooldowns. Vaxta just helps you out with that. You hit some, you miss some. Let's keep it going. All right, we TP'd, so I'm going to bring this back a bit. Okay. I think walking with your Zen on height is the I'm still having a hard time realizing, like, or thinking about, is Kiriko supposed to play like a Brig here, or is it more beneficial for her to play like a Kiriko?
Yeah.
I think you should really always start the fight with your Zen and then branch off and then TP back when you need to. I feel like that's what it should be. But I don't want to say anything definitive. I'm more so using this time to help you figure out how you should be playing Kiri into... Yeah, okay, that's lucky. How you should be playing Kiri in the new meta. And also, I think TPing to a ball or tracer is like instant loss.
Mm-hmm.
If they're critical and they manage to get out, they'll live. If they're critical and manage to not get out on their own, they were going to die anyways. I think it's more important that if you want to help that dive, you have to be already walking. Because realistically, the whole idea is they're going to dive your Zen, right? Because he's the target. You want to make sure you have that TP to get back to him and Suzu him when he actually needs it. So it's the understanding of the Tracer and Ball should be fine on their own with the health packs that are there and also the orb that Zen is going to be providing them. Realistically, you should be fine. Like, look at how fast he is. They're not catching up to that. And there's so many megas around the map. He should be fine. Yep. Okay, like, that's fine. It's just chilling, trying to poke. This is more so their fault that they are staggering as hard as they are. It's a miracle that they're not dead, to be honest. Now they die. Like, that's kind of on them. I don't think that's on you. I think recognizing that as well, especially in NA, is really important. Recognizing when it's like, okay, they're kind of feeding, but if I TP, I'm feeding harder then. Does that also make sense?
Yeah.
It's a very difficult concept. Like, it's going to take you some time to get used to this comp. It sure did for me, but I prefer this way of Overwatch. I'm hoping that maybe there's a bit more clear situations in this next map, but I just hope everything's resonating with you.
Mm-hmm. It makes a lot more sense now. Kind of have more of a direction of how to play it.
You obviously have the basic understanding of like Kiri's kit down. It's more so realizing how that fits into a new comp. So yeah, we're poking that one. Like, you could have TP'd to the soldier there because he's another one of those weird. It's a weird situation because he's not playing like Sojourn that can just get away, or Genji or Sombra. Sombra's probably going to be better than those two, where he actually does need some support too. So that's another target that maybe you have to look to TP to. So popular characters that might not be Tracer, that might be playing this meta, like maybe Widow, maybe, I don't want to say Echo because she should be fine. Like Widow, Hanzo, Ashe, Sojourn, Cassidy, Soldier, anything like that. People that are going to also be good dive targets, you want to make sure you're looking out for them as well. Because ladder is all about adaptation, and those are just things that are going to happen in non-optimal environments. Even though maybe Sombra's the best, or maybe Sojourn's still strong. I don't know about the second DPS yet. I do know that Tracer is a good pick, 100%. See, like that moment, it's like, if he isn't going to get out there, he's going to die anyways. He's such a big target. The Suzu isn't even really going to help him all that much. I would have rather had Suzu in a situation like this or on that soldier instead of looking to like save the tank, because he's not really as valuable as you may think in metas like this. It's much more important that you have the Zen up so that you have Discord uptime. Okay, yeah. Again, if you have questions, just interrupt me. Right now, it's just your team staggering. They don't understand how the comp's played. You want to make sure you don't go so close that you get your Suzu forced out early. It's a big thing. I mean, that's fine, because I think you realize that. If I had been botting with you for like a month, I definitely would have called you out and stuff like that, but I feel like there's a much larger problem that we've been discussing this whole time.
Yeah.
Unlucky. Happens. With the right idea, just bad execution. The right idea is more important than the execution. Yeah, it's just bad execution. Okay, yep. Kind of how to use Suzu there. Man, this is GM Overwatch. This is GM Overwatch, folks. That Genji did not want to kill you. All right, so now you have the Sombra, so you don't really have to worry about the second DPS, and now you really just have to worry about Zen. Okay, I'm all right with this. Because it's the last fight. They have a lot of ults. You need to make something happen. It's a decent Suzu because it keeps the Zen alive. I don't like how you're making that Zen of a kill. He didn't die because they kind of sucked, the enemy. Yeah, okay. So the steps I'm seeing here for Kiriko specifically, let me turn the music back on because it's ruining my mojo. Anyways, so the big thing here is, I think step one is you start with your Zen to take an off angle. Okay. If you get the opportunity to, you can deviate a little bit. You can walk in a little bit to try to take a new angle if it seems like your team is going to be able to take the first fight and they're going to take the first stab at this fight. You can look to diverge a little bit for a new weirder angle, but make sure that you're still able to TP back to that Zen if need be. And then number 3 is that whole idea of once I TP back to the Zen, maybe squeezing that Suzu a little bit or just making it a little bit harder for them to force that out and then going back from there. Just cycling through it. Like maybe we can squeeze a little bit and then we can go back to step 1. It's seeming like what this is going to have to be in order to make Kiri work. I personally think Brig is probably better, but that's also because I have a classical view of the composition. Whereas if you're really cracked on Kiriko, I could also see Kiriko working if you just kill 2 every fight. Like, if you play aggressively. I could totally see that, because you're just not going to die in her either. It really depends on just how strong you think you are on Kiri, because I still think you can make her work to a GM1 level. I mean, I'm probably going to get hate from this from, like, Spylo or any other person that's much smarter than I am, but this is just kind of what I'm observing of this new meta. I mean, it's ladder. Anything can frickin' work. I could probably play Ana right now and somehow make it work. I made it work in double shield. Also a 1 trick, but you know, that still counts. That still cooks. It seems like you guys might actually win this. But don't spoil it.
Yeah, I'm not gonna spoil it.
Yeah. I want to see how this happens. So this is one of those moments you can deviate a little bit. I'm enjoying what the cooking is right now. I don't like how this ball is just kind of using you as a crutch. But ladder is ladder. Got to adapt. That's that's... The other thing is you want to make sure now more than ever that you're not getting your TP forced out in situations you don't want it to get forced out. But that it kind of goes hand in hand with the whole idea of the composition we were talking about before. You want to make sure that you're not TPing in. You're only realistically TPing to get out. You absolutely need to. Like right there, you probably could have TP'd to him, but that's just a fundamental misunderstanding of like Zen is priority number 1. Wow, that was a dodge and a half, but is this the end? I think this is the end. Yeah, this is... Oh, God, so close. It happens. It looks like that's GG's. Yeah, and you're just accepting defeat, it seems. I mean, you're not going to get a 5K unless you're the GOAT. Oh. Moira moment. They all said beat, so. Okay, this was actually really insightful. I think this... We didn't really talk a lot about concrete things, but quite frankly, I don't think that's what you needed for this character. It seems like you've played enough of her to figure out exactly like what those important things are. So the number 1 thing is just look at the teams, look at who you are surrounded by, and understand how that's going to switch the way that you play the game. So in this specific instance, we saw the ball comp versus another Doom comp, which is still a little bit more divey. You had a Genji and a Tracer there for a second. Like, realize what it is they're playing, what they're going to be playing for, and what you are playing for, and how that changes. That's directly into the whole tempo idea, but I'm breaking this down because it's a lot more complicated with this meta specifically.
Okay.
For example, if they're running Brawl and your team's running Brawl, you don't want to play like you're playing with a Wrecking Ball. You want to play it like you're playing with a Brawl, like you were last season. Because who knows, maybe people will still just comfort pick that on King's Row. Like, that changes things. But let's say they're playing Brawl and you're playing the Wrecking Ball comp. You're going to want to take advantage of some high grounds. You're going to want to try to flank a little bit more. The times changed at that moment. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It's not so clear cut. So I think I've exemplified what that is and how that kind of works into each other. And then, I mean, number 2 kind of goes with number 1. It's just adapting to what those teams are. Adapting to what your team is. Like, maybe you still have like a Kiri Lucio. Maybe you will just try to play to help that ball out a little bit more. I mean, it's not great. But if that works, it works. If that doesn't work, switch it up again. Try to do what you would do if you had a Zen.
Mm-hmm.
Realistically, that's what you're going to have to do at the early seasons when the meta is getting figured out, because that's just kind of how people work. At least with NA players in the current iteration of the game. It wasn't always this way, but this is just how it is now. But now, realizing these two things, it's more important now more than ever. I know everyone's sick and tired of me always just screaming about this code, but it is important now more than ever if you're going to try to make Kiriko work, that you are going to be playing Vaxta for at least 5 to 15 minutes a day. I always say go for 30, but don't do it right away. Give yourself some time. I mean, when I was playing in Path to Pro, one of my coaches said, your aim sucks. Just do Vaxta or do Aim Arena for 30 minutes a day and for a week, and you will be like so much better. And he was right. You make such an improvement in a week just working up to higher levels of just practicing. It might seem boring, but it really does make a difference. Trust me, it makes a difference. Especially if you're going to be forced to take some duels and you really want to hit GM1. This, honestly, for you more than most other people, is going to be really helpful. I'm not saying your aim's bad, but it's like, if you really want to make Kiri work in this very demanding meta, the more accurate and consistent you can be, the better. 100%.
Okay.
Do you have any questions for me at this current moment?
No.
Then I'm going to let you cook up a little bit. If you have any other questions, I need to stop using that mannerism, but thank you everyone on YouTube for watching this far. Hopefully you didn't get lost in the sauce, because this is a really difficult concept. I hope I made it somewhat digestible for players that may not be GM3 level. But if you're not a subscriber to this channel and you're just some random dude that just watched another random dude scream at a monitor for 33 minutes, consider giving the video a like and subscribing. Maybe you just maybe enjoy the content a little bit and want to have some more. On top of that, if you want to have your own VODs done, there's a link in the description, and also just hit me up on Discord if you want more guidance on that, or if you have any other questions. The comments are all there. You guys all know the drill. Thank you guys all so much for watching, but until next time, I've got to peace out and pass out. See you in the next one.